Certain states in India still recognize child marriage, a practice that is often widely assumed to be ancient history. But in some communities in the northwestern state of Rajasthan, for example, the tradition continues. And this, of course, impacts the rights of girls to study and to work, as DW's Manira Chaudhary reports.
19-year-old Pallavi loves to sing. A student in college right now, her dream is to become a professional singer. But 5 years ago, her life almost took a completely different course when her parents tried to force her to marry at the age of just 14.
Without my consent, my parents fixed my wedding. When I learned about it, I tried to reason with them a lot, but nothing helped. They finally gave in when I threatened them that I would go to the police and the government.
Pallavi is not the only one here who has faced such a situation. Rajasthan is one of the states in India where child marriage is still an accepted social practice in many communities. Lack of education and high poverty levels have kept this tradition alive. According to a government survey conducted between 2020 and 2021, over 25% of women between the age of 20 to 24 were married before they turned 18. Pallavi was lucky. She received counseling from an NGO called Vikalp Sansthan when she was being pressured to get married by her parents. Founded by Usha Chaudhary, who managed to fend off her own child marriage when she was 14. The NGO has been working for almost 20 years to address gender inequality issues facing young girls and women in India. It has successfully stopped many child marriages and provides counseling and education support to almost 5,000 girls. Usha says that while many boys are also married off at a young age, they don't face the same work and study obstacles that girls do. A lot more needs to be done in terms of awareness campaigns and laws to obliterate the practice entirely, she adds.
We need to make a stronger push for the education of these girls. Secondly, we need to work towards changing the mindset of the communities here. The girls are not a liability or meant only for being in the kitchen. They have their own life, their own dreams. Parents should have faith in their daughters.
That's all these girls ask for: faith and support from their families. And many already have plans. Like Reena here, who was engaged when she was 3 months old, and Mamta, who was engaged when she was a year old.
I'm studying to be a social worker, and I've told everyone in my family that I won't marry until I fulfill this dream of mine. There's pressure from the community for me to get married, but I don't want to marry now. I want to become a teacher.
Avoiding child marriage will still be a struggle for many of these girls. But thanks to NGOs like Usha's, many more will follow their dreams and not give in to pressure.
Joining us is Kavita Ratna of the organization The Concerned for Working Children. Welcome to the program. Kavita, we see organizations step in to try to intervene and prevent child marriages. Are these actions enough?
They're not enough. In fact, they're hardly enough. We have actually recently spoken to a lot of young people in about 15 states of my country, India. And what they were saying was very striking, because these are young people who are really at the edge of the matters, so to speak. A lot of points they were saying, of course, was linked to whether or not law alone is enough. But I think their concerns were also a lot about what are the alternatives in place? What are the educational options? What are the livelihood options? And what we also found was that there were a lot of aspirations young people have, not only in terms of their own life, but also in terms of partnerships and sexuality. So for us, I think we feel a lot of child marriage related discussion has really gone into, in a way, a silo, only looking at issues related to poverty and livelihoods of adults.
Now, can you explain the thinking behind families who decide to commit their daughters to an early marriage? You alluded to poverty. Is that the main reason, is an economic driver behind this phenomenon?
There is an economic driver, but behind that economic driver is a social driver. You see, the situation of young people in my country are extremely compromised. For a lot of families, girl actually is seen as a liability. So when a girl child is born, the first regret is that it's not a boy. The second is, oh my God, how am I going to get this girl married off? Because so much seems to hinge for a girl in terms of identity on a marital status. So marriage for young girls is a very predominant factor in terms of people's minds. The second issue is also about safety of young people. A lot of young girls are very unsafe. They don't feel protected in a community. And very often marriage is considered a way of placing them in safety. So these two are very, very prominent. So you see a lot of the communities, especially in the lower middle class, who would probably think of, that if my child is married, then she's part of a larger family, she's protected, and next she will have to look at if she can produce boys. You see? So it is economic, but much more social.
Got it. Now, at the legislative level, are there moves to ban this practice state by state? And why does there appear to be a lack of political will on this matter on so many fronts?
Legislatively in India, in most states, child marriage or early marriage is not allowed until the boy is 21 and girl is 18. So there's a differential. There have been some arguments on why should there be a differential, can't both be 18 or 21. But the point is that's the existing legislation. The only difference in legislation among the states in my country is in one or two states of my country, child marriage is voidable in the sense that it is the minute it is there's a child marriage, the child marriage is not a marriage at all. But in all other states, a child marriage is still a marriage. So it cannot be annulled unless it's a court procedure. So, but there are pros and cons of both, you see, because at this point in time, there are a large number of young people who are married, and I'm saying from the very young to the much older as in adolescents. And the number of very young children getting married has reduced significantly. That is something we've all noticed. Like you don't have so many 2-year-olds or 5-year-olds getting married. But you do see older young adolescents marry. But what we have seen also, for instance, something like COVID happens, the child marriage has increased because the communities feel vulnerable. They're trying to protect their families, you see. And in terms of political will, I think there is a lot of pressure on the government to actually respond to the situation. But the problem really is the response has been largely legislative. And what our children are constantly talking about, and young people, is that up to 18 is fine. Nobody is contesting that. It makes a lot of sense. But there was a recent move in the country to move the age of marriage of girls to 21. And the thousands of young people have said that is not okay. Because the minute you increase age of marriage to 21, what happens also is that any other act of living together or sexuality or reproductive rights, they also will all start beginning to come under 21. And that can actually harm and criminalize much more than can help.
Understood. Kavita Ratna, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm very glad to have been there. Thank you.